So as opposed to our quiet landings where we're all about control before, our quick landings are really looking at that speed of contraction, reducing ground contact time.
Yep.
Yeah, and using our stretch shortening cycle to be able to absorb force, sort of hold on to that force and use it to explode back out of it.
Yep.
So skipping is a great place to start, and then we'll work through our progressions. Yeah, once we get into that end stage, so the change of direction, hops and these sorts of things, then we are starting to expose the ACL to risk. So we want to have done a bulk of these and be able to know that our tendons function really well, and we're not relying on our hip rotating and our ankle and foot altering its position to absorb shock, that we can do it well through our tendons.
Yeah, awesome. It's good. It's a nice little drop jump here. And I think this is probably, and I like how you've sort of made that distinct definition too from what we're looking at here compared to the box jump, because I think sometimes we get caught up with a box jump being labelled as a plyometric, and I've had many conversations with patients and athletes who say, I'm doing plyometrics, and I said, oh, okay, tell us what you're doing, and they're like, box jumps. I'm like, okay, anything else? And they're like, no, that's about it. And I was like, okay, well, plyometrics are truly that really short, sharp, zippy, bouncing type exercise that's manipulating that stretch, shorten cycle to get off the ground as quickly as possible, and something as simple as skipping is such a powerful, have a really powerful and potent stimulus on tendon health and springiness, particularly with a court-based athlete that needs to jump and land and do that kind of stuff. And I think that's where a simple thing like skipping, I think most physios would be able to easily prescribe some skipping. At least, that's a lot better than just teaching someone to do a box jump and saying that that's your plyometric activity. As important as they are, I think we can just go that little bit extra, and I'm glad you're sort of showing these little sequences here.
Yeah, I love the skipping or like pogo jumps and those sorts of things, because it's really going to load the Achilles tendon quite well. And we can do them pretty early stage and just have less of a focus on the patellar tendon or a quad tendon, especially if that's the graft that was taken for the reconstruction. So you can still give them that plyo effect early without really loading up the tissues that are still in a recovery phase or a bit weakened. So the combination of the hurdles are great just in terms of making sure they land in a position that's really balanced to generate that next rep. The continuous jumping stuff, and keeping them pretty close together means that they really can't compensate as much, or they need to have the focus on the quality of landing as well.
I like especially like when we were trying to manipulate a vertical component, something like basketball, something like netball, where you do want to get some more vertical height out of them. Bringing them closer together is a really unique challenge too, which sometimes if you get stuck in a pattern of just putting down some hurdles in a row and just not really putting thought into what you're trying to manipulate here. If they're too spaced out, we're going to be using too much horizontal force to get across the hurdle. Put them closer together and watch the difference. They'll have to really start to power up and use a different system to get up and over. And I think for someone like Dylan and someone like anyone who's going through knee rehab, it's a court-based athlete, make that little change, and I think you'll see some really nice changes there.
If jumping's part of their job, it's just so important, that vertical aspect.
And I like what you did here with the medial return too, particularly with an ACL athlete. I think if we get caught on just going straight down, either in a linear pathway forwards, or if we're going sideways laterally, that there is very different to how an ACL injury will occur. It's the medially directed forces that's going to really make the person nervous and really put the knee and the ACL put them on an alert, because that's how your body's going to injure. If you're going to injure your ACL, it's going to be in this medially rotation force. So I think we need to expose our athletes to those medial directions, obviously in a safe, controlled way first, and then build them up to more dynamic, challenging ways in the future.
And I would reckon that some people that have had an ACL would get nervous watching just that jumping, the repeated jumping in that way. And it's something that you can expose them to things that are even more challenging for the system than some of the things they'll get to in sport, that you're like, you should go back to sport with a lot of confidence. Like we've done those large hurdle hops, banked all those repetitions of it, and you've held up really well, and